All right. Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. We're really happy to be able to walk you through this optional practical training, OPT, otherwise known as workshop today. Just a couple of housekeeping items. Please feel free to write your questions in the chat, but please know that we will not be getting to some of your questions. We'll try to answer all of them until the end of the presentation. And make sure to take some notes. This will also be available on the ISS website as well. So here we go. My name is Mara Flam. I'm an international student advisor with Penn Global, and I'm here with my colleague Jean Ma, who is also a wonderful advisor, and we're very happy to help you today.
And then I just want to add that, Mara, the question should be entered in Q&A, not
Oh,
chat. I
thank
think
you.
chat may have been disabled, but
Okay, great.
Q&A is where they post the questions.
Okay, great. Thank you,
Thank you.
Jean.
Yep. So Mara, you can get started.
Yep. Okay. So these are the basics that everybody needs to know about for OPT. The purpose of your OPT is to apply knowledge gained in the classroom to practical work experience. And USCIS takes this very seriously that your work experience must be directly applied to your major. For regular OPT, it's 12 months per degree level, and that is for pre-completion and post-completion. It is authorized by USCIS, U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services, not ISSS. We recommend your OPT as part of your I-76 application, but it's USCIS that actually authorizes it. All right, so to be eligible for OPT, you must currently be in valid F1 status, and you will have completed at least one academic year in lawful status. That could mean a couple of different things for different programs. As part of the application process, your program approves your OPT as well. So that's kind of settled in within that, what it means to have one academic year of lawful status. For most students, it's fall and spring. Has students have not been authorized for OPT at the current degree level in the past. So one OPT for each degree level. Students have not been authorized for 12 months of more of full-time CPT at the current degree level. So you can only do 12 months of full-time CPT at the current degree level. Most students at Penn do not do that. Um, in o or else you can't do your OPT, okay? No job is needed to apply. So these are the types of employment that can be authorized under OPT. It can be paid or unpaid, so volunteering works, or legitimate unpaid work is permitted. Again, it just needs to be directly related to your field of study. Students may hold multiple positions, so not just one job, but more positions, and they will be reported, and we'll discuss that a little bit later. Changing employers is permitted, and your positions must total at least 20 hours per week for post-completion OPT. So 20 hours per week is considered full time. You must work in the field of study. We went over this, but just to be super clear, the employment must be directly related to your major field of study. A common question that we are sometimes asked is, how do I know if my job is related to my field of study? So Sometimes the company might not sound like it's related to perhaps a finance major or a law major, whatever, but the duties that are required within that company must relate to your the duties in the company must relate to your major. Okay. Compare. So sometimes students will be able to compare what their duties are to their academic curriculum and what their duties are match up with a particular course or curriculum description. And the important thing that we like to tell students is that you can justify this relationship if you are ever asked by USCIS or a later employer that's maybe applying for H-1B, that you just have this statement basically in your back pocket around justifying your employment relating directly to your major. Your resources. So your academic department and alumni can look at your job description and let you know if they feel that it's related. You can also go to career services as well. And like I said earlier, your academic departments approve the OPT, your OPT request in general, but in terms of figuring it out, if your job is directly related to your major field of study, you might call on your faculty to help you determine that. You can go ahead. So applying for OPT, the process is a multiple step process that continues beyond adjudication. So basically beyond when you receive your EAD card is what we're calling adjudication. So your first step is that you, the student, requests your OPT, and you will go over how that's done specifically in the following slides. The DSO, me, Jean, or your other advisor in ISSS recommends the OPT. After that, the student files their I-765. It's an online filing system through USCIS, and then USCIS adjudicates the I-765 or approves, and then the student gets their EAD, which is their employment authorization document. It's not really a document, it's a little card, and starts work. And once you start work, you must report to the DSO through IPEN, and the DSO reports any address change and employer information. Okay. These are the important dates to remember. So these are the post completion OPT filing timeline. This is mainly geared towards December graduates. So September 19th, 2025 is the earliest OPT application date, which is tomorrow. December 18th, 2025, in this, for December graduates, December 18th, 2025 is your program end date. Even that's not your graduation date. It's your program end date. And then your latest OPT application date is February 16th, 2026. So you can file 90 days before or 60 days after. At this point, nobody here is filing before September 19th. There's some cases who are graduating early, but don't worry about that. If that is the case for you, we've been in conversation. Do not ever file early because early applications get denied. Does not matter how early it is, it gets denied. So at this point, if you haven't filed, you're good. And if you have filed, hopefully you've, obviously worked with us. All right, you can continue. Okay. So here is the first step. First, you request your OPT. How you do this is first review the OPT section of the ISS website, which all of you have access to. There's the address if anybody wants to take a screenshot or take a picture of that, but you will get this presentation. And you have access to it. Complete the OPT I-20 request e-form in iPen. The secondary approver must approve this request. That's your academic advisor. I mentioned this earlier in the presentation. And for post completion OPT requests only, you have an OPT pen processing fee, and that's $290. And you review the OPT tutorial before that request is completed. Okay, step two is the DSO recommendation. How that is done is through the e-form. We review it, we review any comments from your academic advisors, look for any discrepancies that might cause some problems for you in the future or might be related to a denial. So we really take a very thorough look at everything involved in this. So the processing time is up to 7 business days. Then ISSS, your academic advisor, issues a new I-20. It's your same CVIS number. It's basically your same I-20, but it's updated. So we call it new with a recommendation for OPT. The I-20 is sent to you electronically with some instructions and guidelines, and then you print and sign the I-20, and this is what you use to upload to for your I-765 when you're applying through USCIS. Okay, so the application to USCIS. So it's really important that you must be in the US when filing this. So here's the online file I-765 online. That's how you can get to it, to the application. To file, you must have received the OPT I-20 from ISSS. You cannot complete the filing without it, so always make sure you have that first. Plus, it also has some important instructions from us for you for the filing. So file with USCIS. This is also super important. No more than 30 days from when you receive the OPT I-20 from us, or USCIS will deny your application. Okay, so we want to make sure you really understand that you must file with USCIS no more than 30 days after or from when you receive the OPT I-20. Okay. And see USCIS's website also for more information. So for the online filing, all information is submitted online. There is no mailing or postage cost involved. Do not mail anything. Payment can be completed using a credit card or debit card, and there's no need to use a check or a money order. You must complete all the required fields before the system will allow you to proceed. This reduces the chance that your application will be rejected due to incomplete information. Just one important word of caution. Make sure the address that you put on your I-765 to receive your card is 100% complete, including your zip code, including your apartment number. If you are not going to be at this address and you know you're not going to be at this address, or you have an inkling you're not going to be at this address, you can send it somewhere else. The I-765 will direct you there, and it can be in care of, it has care of information on that. Um, it is not students have had their EAD cards lost so in the mail, so you want to make sure that address is super clear, including your apartment number, all of that information. You can use the online portal to respond to requests for evidence, RFEs, if you get one, and we can help you with that. We can look at that and troubleshoot what's going on. After submission, you will receive a receipt number right away. And the request for evidence is if something hasn't been submitted that they need. Luckily, what's been amazing with the online filing is that it has limited any request, a lot of the requests for evidence, because it really doesn't let you move on in the application unless all fields have been completed. So this is the step 4 for USCIS adjudication. The processing timelines for USCIS vary. Regular can average 3 to 4 months, but fluctuates. Sometimes students get it much sooner. Sometimes it's a little bit more than 4 months. So apply as soon as you can if you want to be employed very soon after graduation. Premium processing, additional fee of 1,685. If you do premium processing, the adjudicate is in 30 business days. Um, and you can later change your application to premium if you have first submitted it as a regular application. Okay. And this happens for students sometimes when they get it, when they receive a job offer, like soon after they've applied. So receive case number from USCIS via electronic notification online portal. So you will receive that directly from USCIS. You can use that case number to check the status of your application at www.uscis.gov. You may not, this is super important, you may not engage in employment or training during this time while your cases are being adjudicated. It has to be approved. USCIS may send you a request for evidence during the adjudication period. We touched on that before. Okay, so step 5, you'll receive your EAD card. So once you receive your EAD card, you'll contact ISSS if there are any issues regarding the receipt of your EAD card or any errors on the issued card. Sometimes occasionally there's name errors, anything, you should contact us and we'll give you the steps that you need to undergo to change any errors. So I think that at this point, Jean is going to take over to talk about what happens once you receive the EAD card.
Thanks, Mayor. Okay, so employment, you may begin employment after you have received the EAD, the actual card in the mail. So the process is that USS will first approve your OPT, and then they will let you know by sending you an email because you applied online, and they'll say that your OPT has been approved. But that doesn't mean that you can begin working because you have to wait for the EAD to arrive, and you are supposed to show the EAD to your employer on your first day of job. So it's really important that you understand that you cannot start working until the EAD is received. And then also the start date on the EAD has reached. If the start date is still in the future, you still cannot work. You have to wait until the start date. Okay. All right, OPT reporting. Um, we mentioned that you don't need a job to apply for OPT earlier. But once you do find a job, you have to let us know who you'll be working for, where you will be working in the US, and we need the business address of the employer. There is a form in IPEN called OPT reporting, and that is the form that you use to report your OPT employment to ISSS so that we can update your CVIS record accordingly with the employer name and address and your start day of employment. And once we have that updated, we'll send you an updated I-20 so that your updated I-20 will show that you have an approved OPT start day, end day, and your employer information will be listed as well. In addition to reporting employment, if during OPT time you move to a different address a residential address, if your phone number changes, or if you're no longer using your pen email, you want to use your personal email, OPT reporting. There's another form called OPT address/email/phone update. That is the form that you use to report any of these changes. And many of you will later receive an email from SCVP portal. This is when, if you have an approved OPT from USCIS, SCVP will have this platform where you can log in or create an account, log in, and to view your OPT information, your employer information, your address, and all of that. However, we recommend that you continue to report all of your changes related to OPT directly to IPEN so that we can actually manually update your CVIS record to make sure that every piece of information is accurately entered. Because sometimes if you go ahead and update your portal, which we don't have access, so if you update your portal sometimes will automatically update CVIS, and sometimes we've seen a data discrepancy there. So that it's really important that you update us directly in IPEN, and you just use the SCV portal as a way to view your information. If you see the information is wrong or different, you can let your ISSS advisor know, and then we can take a look at it. Unemployment. So while you're on the 12 months OPT, you are allowed 90 days of an unemployment. So when you receive your EAD, for example, if your EAD has a start date of January 1st, then you have 90 days from January 1st to be employed in the US. The 90-day does not start from when you apply for OPT. It starts from when your OPT starts. So the start date that's listed on the EAD. If you do not, that's why it's really important that once you find a job, you report that to us within 10 days of starting that job. Sometimes we had students in the past that completely forgot to let us know that they found a job, that they have been working for the last several months. The issue with forgetting to update is that if you are a STEM major and you are going to apply for STEM OPT extension, and if your OPT has ended and you realize, oh my goodness, I did not report my OPT employment, and at that time, we will not be able to update your OPT employment because that 12 months have passed. So you want to make sure that as soon as you find a job, you are required to complete an OPT reporting form and let us know within 10 days of starting your job. Okay. Travel. We'll talk about travel while you're on OPT. So while your OPT is pending, in some instances, you can travel while OPT is pending. This is only if you're still enrolled as a student, full-time student. So for example, if you apply for OPT tomorrow, you submit it to USCIS, it's pending. And then here comes the fall break, Thanksgiving break. You can travel outside the US during those breaks, as long as you are coming back before your graduation, which is December 18th. In those cases, you are able to re-enter while OPT is pending. You will just have to make sure that you do have a valid F1 visa to re-enter. Your passport is valid, and you carry a copy of the OPT receipt notice showing that you have applied for OPT. And then obviously your OPT I-20 showing that OPT was submitted and it's pending. When do we not recommend traveling is after you graduate, December 18th. If you're a December graduate, you graduate December 18th, we do not recommend that you travel after graduation if your OPT is still pending. The recommended way is that you wait in the US until after your OPT is approved, EAD received, and then you travel outside the US. So that's why it's important that if you do have travel plans after graduation, you may want to start applying for OPT as soon as tomorrow. So that, as Mara mentioned, the general processing time is 3 to 4 months. So if you're doing the regular processing, it will take some time to receive the EAD. And if you're traveling in January or shortly after graduation, you really need to plan ahead. Okay. There's some risks of traveling outside the US after graduation while OPT is pending. As we mentioned, if you are outside the US, if there's anything happened to your OPT application, for example, if they, for whatever reason, USCIS denies your OPT application, saying that certain things was not submitted or they want you to reapply. If you're in the US during the grace period, you can still reapply for OPT. But if you're outside the US during the grace period after graduation, you cannot reapply. And then you cannot re-enter the US to apply because you already graduated. Then you cannot re-enter the US during grace period if you don't have an approved OPT. And then also, if you are outside the US, EAD is not received, OPT is not approved, and you need to renew your visa. If your visa has already expired, then you cannot renew your visa because you need an EAD to receive the visa. Because you are no longer enrolled, you're not a full-time student anymore. So you need to present your OPT documentation, which is EAD. And then also it's easier to respond to RFE if you received any while you're in the US. And also our office is here and your ISSS advisor is here to help you with that process if you're here, which makes it a lot easier to navigate. Mhm. Um, So definitely make sure you plan your travel and you actively communicate any travel plans with your employer if you have a job. Make sure you have all of these items with you at time of travel. Passport, visa, valid visa. Unless you're Canadian, you do not need a visa. You want to make sure that you have the OPT I-20 from ISSS. This is the updated OPT I-20 that shows OPT approved. Your employer information hopefully is listed there. And then we will sign the page 2 of that I-20, which is your travel endorsement so that you may re-enter. One thing to note is that during OPT, the travel signature is only valid for 6 months. Unlike when you are still a student, we have told you that it's valid for a year, but while you're on OPT, that becomes 6 months only. So you want to make sure that you check the travel signature each time you travel to make sure that it's valid. If not, you can always request a new travel signature in IPEN. Okay. EAD and then proof of employment is highly recommended when you re-enter the US while on OPT. If you do not have a job offer and you must travel and re-enter the US, we recommend that you carry documentation showing that you are actively looking for a job in the US in your field of study. Those documents could be your job applications that you sent or interview invitation from potential employers or any email communication you have with potential employers. Those all show that you're actively looking for a job. You're not just sitting and just enjoying your time after completing your program in the US. Okay, so for our STEM majored students, you are, in addition to the 12 months OPT that we have been discussing here, you're also eligible for the 24 months of OPT STEM extension. So they will basically allow you to work for another 2 years for an E-verified employer in the US for 2 years, and obviously in your STEM major, in your STEM degree and area. We are on a website. We have steps on how to apply for STEM OPT extension. So for students who are going to graduate this December, you don't have to worry about this because you cannot apply for STEM OPT until 90 days before your OPT end date. So right now it's way too early to apply for STEM OPT, but it doesn't hurt to just go to our website and take a look at the information that's available there so that you know what to do when your OPT is ending and you want to apply for STEM OPT extension. Okay, so quickly about STEM OPT. Eligibility, you have to have a STEM major. You should have a job that's in your STEM field of study. It's at least 20 hours a week and it must be paid. Unlike OPT, STEM OPT requires that you have a paid job. You cannot do a volunteer position. You cannot do an unpaid internship. It has to be a 20-hour minimum and paid. Your employer will have to fill out a form called I-93, which is what you need to submit to ISSS before we can recommend STEM OPT extension in CVIS. And then again, you can apply for STEM OPT extension as early as 90 days before your OPT end date. One thing that you need to remember is that your STEM OPT extension application has to be received by USCIS before your OPT end date. So which means that if your OPT has ended, you will not be able to apply for STEM OPT extension. So just keep that in mind. Application process is on our website. The link was shared on the previous slide. While you're on STEM OPT extension, there are a few reporting requirements. They're all explained on our website. So basically every 6 months, you have to let us know that you're still working for this employer, you're still living at the same residential address. If not, you have to update and we have to update your CVIS record. They're just a way for us to keep track of where you are working, where you are residing. And then we want to make sure that your employer is still doing what they're supposed to do in terms of training that they're providing so that you continue to be compliant to the regulation. And then also, like I mentioned, address update. It's very important that if you move, we must have your residential address within 10 days of your move. Okay. So cap gap extension for students who are interested in applying for H-1B. I think there are some students who may have already talked to an employer who's interested in sponsoring an H-1B work visa. There's something called cap gap. What does that mean is that if you have OPT, for example, ends in July, but your H-1B doesn't start until October 1st. So there's a gap between July and October 1st. So USCIS is saying that if you have submitted a timely H-1B application and if it's pending, we will give you an extension of OPT so that you can continue to work for your employer in the US during that gap until the end of September when your H-1B takes effect. However, if your H-1B doesn't get approved, then your employment eligibility ends and your F1 status ends. We can talk more about this with your ISSS advisor if you want to schedule an appointment with your assigned ISSS advisor. We'll be able to answer more questions on this topic. Okay. Some frequently asked questions. My OPT I-20 is more than 30 days old. May I use it to apply for OPT? The answer is no. As Mara mentioned, once you receive your OPT I-20, you have to apply to USCIS within the next 30 days. However, if you find yourself in a position where your I-20 was received more than 30 days, do not panic. Do not continue to submit your application to USCIS. What you want to do is to reach out to your ISSS advisor to let them know that it's been more than 30 days. I was not able to submit my application. What we do is that we will cancel the previous recommendation and re-recommend, and we'll give you a new OPT I-20 so that you can apply to USCIS. Okay, so make sure that you do not submit the application. If you know it's more than 30 days, what happens is that your OPT will be denied. If even if you submit on the 31st day, it will be denied. Do I need my EAD before beginning work? Absolutely. You have to have your EAD in your hand when you start working, and also the start date on the EAD also needs to be a present date so that you can start working. If your EAD start date is in the future, even if you have that EAD in your hand, you still have to wait until the start date on your EAD. Can I change my OPT request dates? If you have not submitted your application to USCIS, you can always reach out to your ISSS advisor and request the new dates if necessary. We will just cancel the recommendation and we'll put in new dates and give you new I-20. But if you have already submitted to USCIS, we cannot change the dates. So just be very careful when you request OPT. I-20 and IPEN, you have to really think about the dates at the time of submitting the request, just know that once it goes to USCIS, we cannot change it. Can I cancel my OPT if I have not used it? You can cancel your OPT if it's still pending with USCIS. If your OPT has already been approved by USCIS, you cannot cancel it, you cannot withdraw it. It's yours whether you use it or not. So if you, sometimes we have students, after a few months, they are not able to find a job and they said, can I cancel it? I don't want to use it. I want to go back to school. Unfortunately, at that time, you will not be able to cancel. As I mentioned, you can only cancel when it's pending with USCIS. I already used my 12 months of OPT in one program while I'll be eligible for another 12 months in another program. You will only be eligible for another OPT after you complete a higher degree. So if you are currently pursuing a bachelor's degree, then you will be eligible for another OPT after you complete a master. So same for if you're a master's student, you will have another OPT after completing a doctoral degree. You cannot have OPT. You can only have one OPT per degree level. What is my immigration status while on OPT? You are still F1. So when you go to renew your F1 visa while on OPT, you want to make sure that you check that you are still applying for renewing an F1, not anything else. Mhm. Um, Just a final reminder, please take some time to read information on our website about OPT and the request process, and also plan ahead. And especially if you are planning on traveling after graduation to go home or to travel with family outside the US, you need to understand that you have to have an approved OPT to re-enter the country. So please plan ahead, apply as early as you can, and so that your travel will not be affected. Make sure you keep copies of everything that you are submitting to USCIS. For example, a copy of your passport, a copy of the application that you fill out online. Make sure you have the entire thing saved so that in case if USCIS sends you an RFE, saying, oh, you did not submit this, then at least you have proof to show that you did submit, even though you still have to respond to the RFE, but at least you know what you submitted to USCIS. While you're applying for OPT or while you're on OPT, make sure you continue to stay in touch with ISSS. We're still here for you even after graduation. As long as you're on OPT or STEM OPT extension, we are still here to support you, answer your questions. So make sure that you stay in touch with us. Okay. All right.